Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Suhas Ganesh. I'm a psychiatrist. I've done my postdoctoral fellowship in addiction medicine from NIMHANS, Bangalore, and I'm currently a postdoctoral associate with the Schizophrenia Neuropharmacology Research Group at Yale University, United States. First of all, I'd like to thank Professor Sudha Tirthalli and Professor Rachel Barry for inviting me to present this talk as part of Arivu series, Prasaranga, Kuvempu University. So although my current research work primarily is focused around cannabis, cannabinoids, and how these affect neurodevelopment, I thought when I was invited to this talk, I'll talk about something which is more relevant to the general public in the current moment, which is on how technology addiction or addiction to technology and how does it affect mental health and what's its relevance to COVID-19 pandemic. So being a clinician, I would like to think about every topic from an angle of clinical relevance. So I'm presenting a hypothetical case of a young man who presented to, let's say, who hypothetically presented to a clinic where I was seeing him. His name is Mr. I. He presents with his mother to the outpatient department. Patient himself is not having any complaints or he's not reporting anything. He's come with his mother because of her persuasion. And he's not interested very much in a conversation with the psychiatrist as well, and says I don't have any problem, and he's fine with his mother narrating her concerns towards him. And when mother starts talking, she tells that he's been spending about 16 to 18 hours a day on his computer, and he demands a lot of money for buying computer games online. He has dropped out of school. He's even before the beginning of the pandemic, he had dropped out of school, and now he hardly goes out of home, and he's always locked himself up in the room. He doesn't mingle with friends or he doesn't mingle with family, and has gained a lot of weight, and he hardly talks to people or engages in any activity. And these things have gotten progressively worse after the COVID-19 pandemic started. And mother is saying she's desperate for help, whereas this patient himself is uh, not willing to, or not very eager to talk about his complaints, or he doesn't seem to have any complaints. Then what should the psychiatrist do at this point of time? So generally what we do is whenever it's an adolescent or a young adult, we talk to them separately. So I send the mother out and then start talking to him about Star Wars online game, and he suddenly becomes very interested. He opens up and he starts talking about all the games that he plays, and the conversation goes on further from there. Now let's keep this case in the background as a scenario, and then we will come back to it at the end of this talk. So today's talk, in today's talk, I'm going to focus on uh, uh, these few dimensions of technology addiction. First of all of us use technology. The very fact that I'm able to present sitting here in the US a lecture that can be recorded online and can be shared with Prasaranga at Kuvempu University is all possible only because of the advances in technology, and there's no doubt in that, or there's no question of that about that. Now, with technology being so ubiquitous, with it being so available to everyone, is there really a problem about it? Can people really develop a problem with it? Can there be an addiction to technology? So is it really something? Is this really an illness? So this is something which we'll discuss briefly. Second, we will talk about the current status of technology addiction or other disorders related to it in ICD-11 and DSM-5, which are the primary classificatory systems in psychiatry and mental health. Then we'll talk about who are the ones who are at greater risk of developing addiction to technology. We'll talk about the risk factors, and then we will talk about how to detect it and how is it treated in very briefly about it. And then lastly, what is the relevance of this topic to COVID-19? Why should we be discussing this more in the time of the pandemic? Now, technology or internet addiction has had several terms depending on which researcher or which university or which center or in which country this was being studied. So some have called it technology addiction, some have called it internet addiction, some have called it internet use disorder. It's been also called it's also been called pathological internet use or problematic internet use. But in all, after considering several different terms, probably the use of the terms like pathological internet use or problematic internet use seem most encompassing of all the dimensions of this problem. Now, let's discuss if this is a valid diagnostic entity at all, whether technology addiction or whether pathological internet use or whether internet addiction, can this be considered a disorder? One of the primary reasons why this question comes up is something which we briefly talked about earlier, is the ubiquitous use of technology. And at least with the onset of the pandemic and work from home and the situation related to online payments, e-marketing, all of us are involved in some way or the other with the use of technology. And we use it on daily basis for a lots of our needs, including fulfilling our professional goals. So this being the case, even if somebody is using technology for, let's say, if somebody is using internet for 12 hours a day to fulfill his goals, then is that excessive? On the basis of excess use alone, can one consider this to be a disorder? Certainly not. Excess use alone does not qualify for this entity to be called as a disorder. However, when what brings it to the or what gives it the status of a disorder is that if there is subjective distress, suppose I'm using 12 hours internet for 12 hours a day, but I am distressed about it, I am unhappy about it, this causes a sense of discomfort in me, there is a sense of subjective distress. So that is one criteria that becomes central to calling this a disorder. Second is the impairment. So suppose I'm using internet for 12 hours a day to fulfill my work goals. There is absolutely no impairment in it. In fact, it is empowering me to do things. Whereas if I am playing games on internet for 12 hours a day, which prevents me from doing a lot of other things which I should have otherwise done. I should have studied, I should have done research, I should have published papers, I should have given lectures. If I'm not doing any of it, but playing games for 12 hours a day, and it is causing impairment in what I should otherwise have achieved, that is another criteria that fulfills which when fulfilled gives this entity the status of a disorder. So subjective distress and impairment become central in diagnosing or in calling in the diagnosis of pathological internet use or internet addiction. Second, if it's a disorder, is it an addictive disorder? Now, all of us are very familiar about familiar of addiction to alcohol. People have alcohol. People who use alcohol regularly can develop alcohol use disorder. People who develop tobacco regularly can develop addiction to tobacco or nicotine or chewing, gutka chewing, or any of these other substances. And in these cases, it's very tangible to diagnose an addictive disorder because there is a substance when used for a very long time. The substance has certain chemicals. In case of tobacco, in smoking, it's prime. Although cigarette contains a lot, cigarette smoke contains lots of chemicals. The primary chemical is nicotine, which acts on the brain on specific receptors called nicotine receptors, and then it engages the reward pathway and in the brain, and it hijacks the reward pathway. And over a period of time, there is some kind of neuroadaptation to chronic presence of nicotine, because of which a person develops addictive disorder. When somebody develops an addictive disorder, it becomes impossible, or it becomes nearly impossible for the person to come out of using the substance or stop using the substance on his own, on his or her own, or he or she develops intense craving for using the substance. There will be when it is not available, they develop problems like irritability, difficulty sleeping, restlessness and agitation, and these other kinds of withdrawal symptoms. And people use more and more with time. Once if it starts as 1 or 2 cigarettes a day, over a period of time it becomes 15 or 20 cigarettes a day. So there is a development of something called tolerance. Now, all these criteria, which are very well ascertained for use developing addictions to developing the addiction to a given substance, can these be applied for internet use? Very interestingly, regular use of internet or internet gaming or use of internet for several other purposes like social media, some people can develop the very same symptoms that we just talked about, called craving, which is intense desire to keep using it, tolerance, which is using it more and more than how they started in order to get the same degree of comfort about using it. And they can develop withdrawal symptoms. Suppose there is a power outage someday and people are not able to access, they can develop irritability, restlessness, because of internet not being available that day. And there could be loss of control, that they are not able to control their usage. Someday it goes on till 12 hours, next day the use goes to 14 hours or 16 hours. So there is a loss of control. And then there is development of salience, that no other activity gives the same pleasure as the act of using internet. So there are all these criteria which are used in diagnosis of substance related addictive disorders, are also more or less applicable in case of internet use or development of addiction to internet use. So definitely it can be considered as an addictive disorder. And then if it is an addictive disorder, what is the object of addiction? So are we talking about addiction to, let's say, laptop, or addiction to mobile phone, or addiction to internet, or is it the medium, or is it the content? So is it addiction to gaming, or is it addiction to pornography, or is it addiction to, let's say, social media? Is it addiction to online chatting? Is it addiction to having virtual relationships online? So these are the next set of questions that are to be fully resolved. And then if it is a disorder, if it's an addictive disorder, and if, let's say, a disorder can develop both to the object as well as the medium. And the next question is about how do we diagnose it? There are several scales which have been developed, which cover some of the items that we, or some of the criteria that we just discussed, or the constructs that we just discussed, to make a diagnosis of internet addiction. So more or less it's a valid entity, but the debate is still on. There is no consensus on it. There is no full consensus on it yet. And this is reflected in the current nosology. By nosology, I mean these are classificatory systems which are used in diagnosing a certain kind of or making a diagnosis, clinical diagnosis of a certain condition. We do it based on given set of criteria. And the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5, which is primarily used in North America and primarily in the United States, and International Classification of Diseases 11, which is used in the rest of the world. Both of them have some criterion which have been put in there to diagnose internet addiction. In terms of all these behavioral addictions that we were talking about, the DSM-5 recognizes only gambling disorder at the moment, and internet gaming disorder is still not a full-fledged clinical condition. So it's noted as a condition for further study. Whereas in case of ICD-11, which is a little more recent and it's going to be officially adopted in practice starting next year. So there they make a classification of, again, gambling disorder under addictive behaviors, and there is a subclassification of gambling predominantly online and offline. And among all internet addictions, internet gaming disorder has been given a recognized disease status. So gaming disorder is again classified as predominantly online or predominantly offline. Among other behavioral addictions or other disorders which may overlap with behavioral addictions, compulsive sexual behavior disorder has been classified as an impulse control disorder. But even this can present as a behavioral addiction in terms of repeated use of internet, or repeated use of online media for watching pornography or other media content related to other sexual content related media. So overall, although internet gaming disorder has gained some prominence in the nosological systems, several other behaviors related to internet use, which may have the repetitiveness, which may have the other symptoms of addiction, have not been yet officially diagnosed, or cannot be yet officially diagnosed. But these are areas which are still under active research, and more and more is going to be known about it in the days to come. Now, who are the ones who are at risk for developing these disorders? So who are the ones in whom there is a greater propensity for developing these disorders? So people with uh, ADHD symptoms. ADHD stands for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. People with depression, anxiety symptoms, or obsessive compulsive disorder, or people with aggression. These are all known to be comorbid with internet use. By comorbid, it is seen that in this frequency, like let's say between 60 to 100% of the times, if in people with internet addiction or pathological use of internet, there will be comorbid symptoms of ADHD, depression, anxiety, OCD, or aggression. But it still does not resolve whether these caused the internet addiction or whether these symptoms are the consequence of internet addiction. And in all likelihood, it's probably both. I mean, presence of these symptoms can make one more vulnerable to develop internet addiction. At the same time, excessive use of internet can lead to more and more worsening, or as a vicious cycle, it can worsen depression or depressive symptoms, anxiety symptoms of, and aggression or ADHD symptoms. Now, in addition to these comorbidities, there are temperamental or personality vulnerabilities. So those who are extremely impulsive, those who take decisions without forethought of consequence, or those who have compulsive temperament, or those who have externalizing or internalizing temperament or across both ends of the spectrum, can have a greater risk for developing internet addiction. So how is it typically assessed? So one is, of course, quantity and frequency. So if somebody has a work which warrants him to be on internet for 8 hours a day, and if he uses an additional 2 hours of internet, he or she uses additional 2 hours of internet and making it 10 hours, the 10 hours use may not constitute itself as an excess quantity or frequency. However, if one has 8 hours of work and one spends another 8 hours gaming on internet, and that kind of spills over on his work hours as well, that is definitely use of it in excess quantity and frequency. Second is the nature of use. Again, use for a specified purpose or use for something which there is an inherent motive in the person to fulfill a goal. That use of that nature will not be qualified, will not qualify for a disordered use, whereas use for purposes which cause a sense of subjective distress, which could be excess gaming or excess use of social media, etc., will again constitute uh, uh, a criteria for internet addiction. Now, then what is the motivation for use and the type of use? So these are other criteria which are used for assessment. And then we assess comorbidity, whether some symptoms that we spoke about earlier, whether there is comorbid symptoms of ADHD, anxiety, depression, or OCD. As we discussed, these could be both cause and consequence. So addressing these become very important in the management of internet addiction. Then we also assess temperament and other vulnerability factors, like the externalizing or internalizing temperament that we spoke about in the last slide. And lastly, there are several scales which have been used to quantify or to arrive at some score for internet addiction, and these can also be applied in a clinical setting. So at this stage, I'd like to address a question. So address a specific question which people may come up with, that let's say, what should general public take away from this? I mean, when should I be worried that whether I'm developing a problem? So in most cases, the use of internet or the excess use of, even if the use of internet is seeming excessive, will probably not warrant clinical attention. But again, as we discussed earlier, if there is subjective distress, that a person himself or herself are they are feeling that it is causing distress, this use has become excessive and it is something which is out of their control, and the desire to use it is overpowering, that is one scenario where clinical attention may become really necessary. Second, if it is causing impairment. Now, impairment and distress are not totally independent. The impairment itself may be leading to more distress. So if one believes that the excessive use is so much more that it is not allowing one to perform other duties or functions that one would have wanted to perform, that is another scenario where one would want to seek clinical attention. So it is the presence of subjective distress as well as impairment, which become critical in guiding if somebody should be seeking clinical attention. Now, in terms of management, these are primarily managed with psychological interventions. There are several forms of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy or short-term treatment for internet and computer gaming addiction. These are therapies which are administered in phases where there will be behavioral interventions which are about setting limits to the number of hours a person uses internet, or making changes with a person's behavioral routine so that the use of internet can be controlled. Then the therapy addresses the cognitive schema underlying this excess use, or what could have led to this excess use. And lastly, harm reduction, which is about uh, uh, addressing all the comorbidities or temperamental vulnerabilities that led to internet addiction. There can also be situations where pharmacological interventions, that this is use of medications, may be warranted when there is severe when the comorbidity itself is so severe that without treating it, it will be hard to treat the internet addiction. So if, let's say, somebody has severe depression or severe anxiety that uh, precludes or that prevents that person from participating in therapy, those are the situations where a pharmacological treatment may also be used, and often a combination treatment will may also be employed, but the clinician whom one consults will take this decision. Now, what is the impact of COVID-19 on internet addiction? Now, there are reports from all across the globe of increased use of internet, and I mean, COVID, of course, led to an increased anxiety in most people. There was the sense of uncertainty about future and uncertainty about professional uh, careers or prospects, and this anxiety, and also the lockdowns and isolation, social distancing, all of these have definitely had an impact on excess use of internet, and internet use has only gone up in most places, and there have been several reports from around the globe which have noted that the prevalence of internet addiction during COVID pandemic has gone up. So this being the case, in case of India, which is a country which is at the forefront of digital transformation at this point of time, if you see some data from 2014 to 2018, there's almost 5 times increase in the number of smartphone users, and the total number of internet users in India is, the numbers are astronomical. That 560 million internet users, and the cashless transactions have gone up because of online marketing, etc. And monthly data consumption has exponentially increased over the past 4 years. So internet or use of technology is going to be a part and parcel of all our everyone's lives in near future, and almost everybody is going to have access to internet. So although we may discuss and debate whether internet use in itself or internet addiction in itself is a disorder, or whether it's a diagnosable entity, uh, while that can continue to be while we can continue to debate on that, what is unquestionable is that the use of internet is going to find its way in the manifestation of a lot of other disorders which we would otherwise experience, like disorders like depression or anxiety, which are very common. The use of internet is going to be going to find its way as one of the manifesting symptoms in these disorders. But although that may sound like a downside, there's also a lot of innovation on how to deliver therapies, how to make psychiatric treatment or psychological treatments accessible to large number of people through online consultations or app-based therapeutic therapies which can be delivered. Although one has to be careful to find which app has been approved, or which has the all the regulatory approvals to be used in clinical populations and such. But internet can also be a boon to uh, to treat the same problems which we think are caused by internet. So there are novel modes of treatment delivery which can be done using internet and app-based platforms. So there is also a scope for future research on what on the disease construct and finding out the burden and treatment gap in these for these disorders, and what are the pathways to care. And of course, in Indian context, given that we speak so many different languages, uh, uh, therapy and treatment approaches in local languages become an important piece among future research goals. So going back to the case which we started with, if we ask a few questions and address them now again, did Mr. I have internet addiction or problematic internet use? The answer is in all probability yes. And were his problems exclusively due to COVID? Probably not. The problems existed even before COVID, but COVID only increased the intensity or the severity of the problems. What were his comorbid diagnosis? Upon further conversation, several rounds of therapy, in this hypothetical scenario, the person come comes up with a lot of subjective distress, and even impairment, of course, was visible to the mother, but the subjective distress was about not being able to mingle with friends or not being able to express oneself in his peer group, because of which this Mr. I was engaging in excessive use of internet. In online gaming, they make friends, people meet new people, who are all anonymous. You'll be able to mingle with them, talk to them, share your feelings with them, emotions. And this, even in Mr. I's case, because these needs were not being fulfilled in his peer group in real world conversation, these were happening in the virtual world. So what were his temperamental vulnerabilities? He probably had more internalizing temperament with more anxious, avoidant kind of temperamental temperamental features. And what should be the best treatment strategy? Just by restricting the use of internet and saying I'm going to take away internet from you for 12 hours a day is only going to probably make things worse. Although that kind of restriction can be gradually introduced in a suitable therapeutic environment. But in addition to that, treating or addressing the underlying issues or the temperamental vulnerabilities that we talked about, like the issues of social anxiety, become very critical or important. So that reminds me of a famous kagga by Sri D.V. Gundappa, which reads Annadathurakinta Chinnadathura Tikshna, Chinnadathurakinta Hennu Gandolavu, Mannaneya Dahavi Elakum Tikshnatama, Tinnuvudu Atmavane Mankutimma. And in case of the client whom we just talked about, Mr. I, it was that need for social appreciation or need for social interaction, which was not being met, which manifested as internet addiction. So internet addiction may not, while we continue to debate whether it's a primary diagnosis or something which warrants an independent diagnosis, a lot of our psychological issues or psychological difficulties may themselves find way may find a way to express themselves through our use of internet. I'd like to thank again for this opportunity, and hope you enjoyed this talk. Thank you.